Hello, and in this video, I want to review the Jehovah's Witness booklet, Purple Triangles, Forgotten Victims of they call the Nazi Regime. I'm just going to go by their title, okay? Purple Triangles, Forgotten Victims of the Nazi Regime, which is basically about, what Jehovah's Witnesses had to endure in Hitlerite concentration camps. And of course, the Jehovah's Witnesses were forced to wear a purple triangle, right? Homosexuals wore a pink triangle, and Jehovah's Witnesses wore a purple triangle, right? Because Hitler said he was going to get rid of Jehovah's Witnesses. Actually, Bible students, but Bible students, but German Bible students, but. And this whole thing is like an exhibit. This pamphlet is really cool. It's like an exhibit, and it starts here. It's like an exhibit. It was put together in 2023, and you can look at this if you download the Jehovah's Witness app. You can download this booklet, and you can look at it. Right, it's kind of like an exhibit. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, and it covers a period between 1933 and 1945. So I'm just gonna go over the different part. I'm gonna go to the preface. I'm gonna read a little bit of the preface here. Quote, and there'll be a link in the description where you can find this in the Jehovah Witness website too. So, quote, by the end of 2002, about 600,000 visitors, many young people among them, had seen the traveling exhibition about the persecution of the prisoners with the Purple Triangle and others of Jehovah's Witnesses in the Third Reich. The exhibition was staged at memorial museums of former concentration camps such as Mauthausen, Moringen, Neuengamme, Buchenwald, Sachsenhausen, and Bergen-Belsen, as well as in adult education centers and other educational institutions. This effort was important and instrumental in saving these forgotten victims, as German historians call them, from oblivion. What further benefit comes from the presentation of such an exhibition to the public? And this is like a little picture of it, of the exhibition space. You can see it over here. You cannot do that here and in this one. Okay, but here you can see it here. It's kind of like, it's a little bit green, but that's kind of like the exhibition. It's like a traveling exhibition they did. You can see it there. It's a little bit blurry because it's a small picture, but you can get the idea. On January the 27th, 1998, the annual commemoration day for the victims of National Socialism, the Memorial Museum at Sachsenhausen camp dedicated the day to victims who were Jehovah's Witnesses. Exhibitions of this kind do far more than just inform about the facts of the bitter persecution of a religious minority in the Hitlerite regime. It also shows the value and necessity of documenting the past. Okay, and Jehovah's Witnesses referred here to as this is a day for the victims of National Socialism. Okay, the National Socialism in question is the Hitlerite version of National Socialism, which is a corruption of the original National Socialism, which was espoused by Anton Drexel, who was simply a nationalistic social democrat. Okay, and it's very different. The National Socialism expressed by Hitler is very different from the National Socialism espoused by the Strasser brothers, who were revolutionary National Socialists. Yeah, but this is not about the different factions of the pre-Night of the Long Knives National Socialism. I digress, but I just want to make that clear, right? So it just talks here about different, let's see. Anyways, three sets of this exhibition exist with about 50 panels each, and they can be shown publicly under the following titles, quote, Jehovah's Witnesses stand firm against Nazi assault, end quote. As an accompanying exhibition for the public presentation of the video documentary with the same title produced by the Watchtower Society, or with other films about this topic produced by non-witnesses. Forgotten victims, so far historians have been referring to Jehovah's Witnesses as, quote, forgotten victims of the Nazi regime, and, quote, spiritual resistance out of Christian conviction, end quote, as was done as an accompanying exhibition of scientific forums with the same titles in Wewelsburg, Hamburg, and Frankfurt am Main in October 1997. Okay, so yeah, so this is a pretty comprehensive thing. This traveling exhibition is pretty comprehensive, has had many contributions from, many other actors, historians, etc., trying to keep the memory alive of the people with the purple triangle. So Yeah. So, anyways, let's see. Back to the. Let's see another. Let's go over other. Let's see. Quotations is the second chapter. Quotations. Let's see. This is a quote from. Yeah, from Friedrich Zipfel. Quote, the extent of loyalty towards the state was the criterion for initiating persecution. The International Association of Earnest Bible Students and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society were the first religious association to be hit by the Hitlerites, and they were hit the hardest. Hardly an analysis has been made or any memoirs written about the concentration camps which do not include a description of the strong faith, the diligence, the helpfulness, and the fanatical martyrdom of the earnest Bible students. Okay, and this was written in Kirchenkampf in Deutschland, 1933-1945 by Friedrich Zipfel, Berlin, 1965, page 175. Quote, it is striking that no other religious sect suffered as much under National Socialism, the Hitlerite version of it, as did the earnest Bible students. Die Ernsten Bibelforscher im Dritte Reich by Michael H. Katter. My pronunciation of German is horrible. Published in April 1969, Stuttgart, 1969, page 183. Quote, the distribution of the resolution on December 12, 1936, and the open letter on June 20, 1937 were not only a very spectacular but also a new way of public preaching. These were campaigns throughout the Reich that were so well coordinated that they could take place all over Germany on the same day and at the same time. Through the whole Nazi era in the Hitlerite era in Germany, there was no other resistance organization that took comparable initiatives. So the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Bible students, their form of resistance was to engage in clandestine propaganda against the against the Hitlerite government, right? Very similar to what Sophie Scholl and her friends, what was it called? The White Rose type of like the same tactic. Like they would have tracts. They had two tracts. The resolution and the open letter that they would reproduce and distribute clandestinely. Okay, that's a good idea. Quote, as a totalitarian state, it required that people give their full devotion to the regime. The Hitler government had placed itself in the position of God and demanded that the entire national community be in harmony with the Führer. And thus resistance became a mandatory dictate of self-esteem and self-assertion for the religious denomination of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I mean, this part about full devotion to the regime, Joseph Goebbels came up with the positive Christianity, which was the official Christianity of the Hitlerite regime, in which Mein Kampf was made equal to the Bible, and then the sort of the anti-Semitic perspectives of Martin Luther were emphasized, and it was sort of like a partial restoration of what do you call it? The first heretic, Marcion. When Marcion deleted the Old Testament and changed the language and deleted all references to Jesus' Judaism to emphasize, and emphasize Paul. Okay, sort of like that, sort of Marcion, sort of like Marcion Luther anti-Semitic emphasis, but contextualized by this equation of Mein Kampf with the Bible, and then saying that Hitler was the German Messiah, the Messiah of the Aryan race or whatever. So that is what the Jehovah's Witnesses were going through, right? And that is what they rejected. That is what they rejected 100%. So yeah, so positive Christianity is pretty crazy. And I'm going to put a link in the description to it where you can find positive Christianity. You can read it for yourself. It's crazy. Quote, as early in the Weimar Republic, Jehovah's Witnesses were exposed to the hostilities of racial nationalistic forces, the church, and the first legal measures from the state. Although in 1933, the IVV, International Bible Students Association, tried to adapt to the new situation and declared their strictly non-political and anti-communist nature. Harsh conflicts with the government agencies soon followed. Charles Taze Russell was a hard critic of socialism, an opponent and critic of socialism. I just want to make that clear. I disagree with Charles Taze Russell, but I define socialism in Marxist terms. Charles Taze Russell, I'm not sure what definition of socialism is. I think he meant the Social Democrats, but as you know, in 1914 they voted for war credits. So Charles Taze Russell was just adamant that socialism is bad, whatever. Anyways, already the spring of 1933 saw heavy persecution, confiscations, and bans of publishing, preaching, and organizing. So, and this was this is a book called I cannot uh, Das NS-Regime und seine Gegner by Hartmut Mehringer, Munich, 1997. Quote, the first thing we can learn from the attitude of Jehovah's Witnesses in Nazi Germany is that a small group, relying on their faith and resolute solidarity, succeeded in withdrawing from the Hitler-Reich regime's totalitarian grasp, albeit at a high price. Second, it should be an obligation for us, the generations born after the Third Reich, to ensure that people will never again have to die to remain true to their conscience. End quote. The Religious Association of Jehovah's Witnesses in Baden and Württemberg, 1945, by Dr. Hubert Rosser, in Persecution and Resistance of Jehovah's Witnesses during the Nazi regime, 1932-1945, etc. So, you know, this quotations is pretty cool. I'm going to skip ahead. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but there's a lot of stuff here. You know, bands, underground, I mean, the different things. So I'm going to skip around. I'm going to go through underground directly because that's the part that interests me. I'm really interested in clandestine resistance. So underground. Many witnesses, such as Max and Konrad Franke, practiced their faith in spite of persecution, some duplicating Watchtower literature underground. Konrad was taken to the camps at Osthofen in 1933, Sachsenburg 1934, and Sachsenhausen 1936 to 1945, whereas his father Max was in Sachsenburg 1934 and Munchenwald as from 1935. And this is them, these two. They reproduced the duplicate Watchtower literature underground. No doubt distributing, you know, like they were distributing tracts on a clandestine basis. Clandestine distribution of tracts, right, was their method of resistance against the Hitler-Reich government. You know, and this is why I don't like to use the word German when I talk about, you know, so-called Nazi Germany. I don't like that term because Germany suggests that everybody in Germany was involved with Hitler. And I mean, there was the German resistance. And these people right here are a subset of the German resistance. It wasn't just Count von Stauffenberg in 1944 and his people. There was also the White Rose, and obviously there was the Jehovah's Witness underground, right? The Jehovah's Witness underground. So, you know, the German resistance, and there was also the workers' resistance. You know, workers that have been factory workers that have been members of the Communist Party. They actually sabotaged production, war production. In secretly sabotaged, they caused damage to the war production effort. So that was another type of resistance. So there were a lot of, the German resistance was very diverse and it included many people, you know, so you cannot say Nazi Germany because then that assumes this premise that, you know, which I reject, that, you know, Deutschland is Hitler and you know, and what is it? Deutschland Hitler East, which was what, you know, what's his name? The guy that flew to England, what's his name? The deputy Führer, Hess, a speech by Hess when he said that. You know, you don't want to concede Germany to, you don't want to concede to that slogan. So, let's see. Maria Hombach served as underground courier. In February 1940, she was sentenced to 3.5 years of prison, which she spent in solitary confinement. The judiciary set her free in 1943 after her Catholic parents pleaded for clemency. She discreetly continued her witness activities until 1945. She got never caught. She was never caught. So she was good. She did like clandestine activity and she was never caught. Cool. She was cool, right? She got away with it. She got away with it. She was a courier. She worked as a courier all the way. You know, she was a courier and worked all the way in witness activity in 1945. She never got caught. She never got caught. There you go. See? She never got caught. Maria Hombach. See, not everybody, you know, some people are successful at this stuff. She was. Part of the book Jehovah, 1934, from the German underground work, reduced photographically to the size of a matchbox. That's cool. So they reproduced the literature to the size of a matchbox, so you could hide it as a match. It looked like a matchbox in your pocket, but it was actually literature. So it's cool. See, like miniaturized Jehovah's Witness literature that you could read or whatever. And I mean, it's if a miniature, you can just hand it, right? You can just pass it on, like, yeah, whatever. Perfect, great. On December 12, 1936, Jehovah's Witnesses distributed a printed resolution all over Germany protesting the persecution. On June 20, 1937, the open letter followed, containing more details. So yeah, it was this tract they distributed all over Germany, protesting the persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses and Bible students, you know. So yeah. So they distributed these things, they were parts of the German resistance, So